Hello, I'm Waqar Rizvi, and this is Scope. The peace process in Afghanistan seems to be picking up pace, with Pakistan taking a leading role. The foreign minister has traveled to Afghanistan, Iran, China, and Russia for consultations in that regard. At the same time, Iran has revealed it has been in talks with the Taliban. Added to this is the postponement of April presidential elections in Afghanistan. Is genuine peace around the corner in Afghanistan? To discuss that and a lot more, we're joined now by Mr. Asad Daudzai, who is a journalist, joining us live now from the Afghan capital, Kabul. We're also joined now by Mr. Tawheed Asadi, who is a PhD candidate in regional studies and is also editor of the World Desk of the ISNA News Agency. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us. Tawheed, I'd like to start with you, if I may. What do you make of the Afghan peace process right now and Iran's role in it?
Well, actually, thank you very much for inviting me. I need to begin with saying the sentence that Iran is always looking for peace and stability in the region. So it's actually with no surprise that Iran goes to different parties in order to achieve this objective. And then one more point, which is critically important when it comes to the news that has been revealed in the couple of past days, is that we need to pay attention that when we go for negotiations with Taliban or other groups in the region, it doesn't mean that we sponsor whatever they're doing in their country. So basically, our objective, as I told you before, is to kind of make it possible for peace to take place in the region. And Afghanistan and Pakistan both are our critically important partners in the region. So we're trying to have cooperations with them, not only at state level, but also at non-state level as well. So we went to Taliban in order to make it possible to have negotiations. But the thing is that there are some shared commonalities between Taliban, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, even though when it comes to practice, they might be different in their approaches. But the thing is that when it comes to, for example, presence of foreign troops in the region, I think everybody in the region, including Pakistani government, including Afghanistan, including the people in Kabul, or even including the people in Taliban, they are always looking for options to make this foreign presence, foreign military presence in the region as limited as possible.
So Tawheed, if you allow me, I'm going to pick up on that point you made there, Tawheed, about foreign forces, because Asad, I wanted to get your opinion on that. You are in Kabul right now. So tell us your opinion, Asad, about the involvement, for example, of Iran in this peace process, its talks with the Taliban, the point of view from Kabul, and secondly, this point about foreign forces there.
Well, as far as the international presence in Afghanistan is concerned, that was for a temporary time, and they were leading a mission on counter-terrorism. Well, now armed forces have enough capability to lead the combat against insurgents.
Tawheed, I wanted to ask you, at this time, when it comes to talks between Iran and the Taliban directly, Tawheed, there have been accusations in the past, Tawheed, that, for example, Iran's Revolutionary Guards have been in direct talks with the Taliban for many, many years. Is that a good thing in your opinion?
Well, when you say is that a good thing, basically when we're talking about good and bad, as far as Iranian perspective is concerned, good thing is to have peace in the region.
Well, I mean, Tawheed, let me explain myself, because I mean from this point of view about relations with the Taliban, because many countries, and I can talk about, for example, Saudi Arabia, have spoken about Iran having relations with the Taliban. Is that true?
There are two different things. Well, there are sometimes this word relation should be kind of elaborated, I think, before I move on to answer your question. Well, to tell you the truth, having relation does not mean that, I told you before, that we sponsor and we support whatever they're doing. So when we know that there are some Taliban affiliates which are closely connected with Al-Qaeda in the region, that goes without saying. And then we recognize them as terrorist groups. And then our clear foreign policy is that we never, ever sponsor any kind of terrorist activity in the region and beyond it. So basically, the intention behind these talks is to make possible kind of conversation between Afghani people and then to have more peace and stability in the region.
Let me put that point into Assad. Assad, do you think that the involvement of Iran is positive in its talks with the Taliban?
Well, yes, because some of the Taliban groups were supported by Iran, in the neighboring provinces of Afghanistan with Iran. If Iran talks with Taliban, so there are some developmental works were ongoing in Afghanistan with Iran. That was hindered due to the Taliban attacks and insecurity, which was backed by Iran. So now, if Iran wants to talk to Taliban, so that will be a positive thing for Afghanistan and Afghan people. So there will be no challenge for developmental works in the provinces which are bordered with Iran. So there were certain attacks and there were certain incidents that was backed by Iran. Iran-backed groups of Taliban. So now if Iran wants to talk, so it will be a positive and good thing for Afghan peace process.
Okay, so Tawheed, I'm wondering, what do you think Iran's plan, regional country's plan, I should say, should be for Afghanistan? Because, many people, Tawheed, would say that it's not smart for the U.S. forces to just walk away from Afghanistan. Iran says that, the presence of U.S. forces is a wrong and illogical move, and I'm quoting Bahram Qasemi here. But at the same time, we can't just have the U.S. leave immediately, can we?
Yeah, why not? Well, before I go on to your question, let me just add a few lines of sentences to what my friend says from Kabul. But the thing is that when it comes to region, not only Afghanistan, but also Syria, but also, all the countries in the region, Iranian foreign policy is based on domestic solutions for problems that countries have. So when it comes to Afghanistan, let me put emphasis on this point. We went to kind of talks with Taliban for the sake of having peace in the region. But the point, and the very critical point, is that all this story was not under table, by which I mean that we, first of all, before initiation of this kind of talks, we had a conversation with our Afghan friends, with the government in Kabul, to let them know that there is going to be such a process. And then, as you know, everyone with a little bit knowledge of international relations would guess that kind of mediation for the sake of having more peace and stability in the region that you are located is going to be quite logical. But my question, getting back to your question, is that what is the interest of the United States as a country which is far, far away from this region? So my question is, why is it that we should think the American party, the American side, would have kind of concern about peace and stability in this region? Well, when it comes to the, let's say, policies that they make, when it comes to the statements, yeah, there are going to be some nice words, no doubt about it. But when it comes to practice, let's be realistic. The United States has entered this country, has invaded this country, not only this country, but also Iraq. And after 10 years and even more, you see what took place in Iraq, you see what took place in Afghanistan, and now, right now, you see what is taking place currently in Syria. So what I'm trying to say is that let's take a look at the past. For the past years, let me finish, and I'm going to give the floor.
Yeah, sure.
For every country, for each and every country that the United States has started any kind of intervention, mainly including military, then the result would be a chaos with no small spot of hesitation. Look at Iraq. After so many years of American presence there, full presence, then the result is kind of chaotic situation that you see. And now, look at Afghanistan, that's going to be the same thing. And this is not my statement. Even American politicians, so many of them, just take a look. You will see that they would say American presence in Afghanistan has been proved to be a big failure with so many bad consequences.
All right, so Tawheed, if you allow me, Tawheed, let me add another voice to this conversation. We're now joined by Dr. Hassan Askari, who is an analyst, and he's joining us from right here in Lahore itself on the line. Dr. Askari, thanks for joining us here in The Scope. What do you make, Dr. Askari, of these efforts vis-a-vis the Afghan peace process on the part of Pakistan, but not just Pakistan? We also have, of course, China, Russia, and even Iran, and, of course, the Afghan government also involved in this process.
Well, it seems that in addition to Pakistan, some of the important powers of the regions are equally interested in making an effort for some kind of political arrangement and settlement in Afghanistan, if possible. These are initial efforts and initial contacts have been made. It seems that the process will take time. However, the important thing is that it's not simply Pakistan or America or Afghanistan, but as other important powers like Russia, China, even Iran are trying their hard. So I think this kind of a regional approach which they are trying to adopt may be in a position to find some arrangements for meaningful talks and a political settlement. But at this stage, it's too early to suggest the direction in which talks would go or whether there will be a political settlement or not. However, the signs are good. Efforts are worthy of attention, but we'll have to wait and see how things go on. It will depend what kind of offers the parties are going to make, especially the United States and the Kabul government.
Very well, gentlemen, we're just going to take a very quick break. We'll be right back after this break with more, of course, on this very important story coming out regarding the Afghan peace process and the latest regarding that. We're back now with our guests who are joining us regarding this important topic as we've discussed in the first segment before coming into this break about the Afghan peace process. Tawheed, I wanted to bring you back in, if I may, and ask you, Tawheed, at this point in time, how do you think Iran views this entire process at this point in time? Does this see it as a positive process? For example, that even the elections right now that were set to be held in April have now been postponed and delayed in Afghanistan. Do you think that's a chance for better peace, for a better peace process possibly in Afghanistan?
Well, I think, yeah, that's kind of as my other friend from Pakistan mentioned, there are so many positive signals that could be seen regarding the peace process in Afghanistan. But the thing is that Iran has always mentioned that if we want to solve problems, if they are domestic, we should solve them domestically. And if it is a regional problem, we should solve it in a regional manner. So basically, Iran believes and has always mentioned that in case we come to a point in which different Afghani parties, including Taliban, including the Kabul, and including different political parties, the legitimate parties working in the country, if we can come to the conclusion that make a situation for them to have talks, it's going to be much better compared to the situation that we might bring some other powers from other regions, if you can call them superpowers, that would be up to you. But my point is that if we want to solve this problem, we would not need that much amount of the American presence. We would, even when it comes to Russians, I might be tough in my claim, but the thing is that if it's a regional problem and if it's a domestic problem, we should let the domestic parties to solve it. But what we can do as our responsibility is to provide an arena, is to provide a situation, a circumstances in which they can have a kind of possibility for conversation. This kind of provision might be in form of, I don't know, hosting different parties, hosting, let's say, different sections to have them gathered in some place, or then ask them to get us their opinion, and then provide a chance for further conversation.
But Tawheed, if I may, Tawheed, because you mentioned talks, but I wonder, can the Afghan parties even talk, because the Taliban refuses to talk to the Kabul government? So how can we move forward when the Taliban is refusing to even speak to the Kabul government?
Right. Well, I can't say what you're saying is wrong, because Taliban has proved to be a tough negotiator. So basically, you're right. When it comes to their stances, they say that we refuse to have conversation with Afghan with the government in Kabul. But the thing is that we should ask them why. What's wrong that you're not interested in talks? So they refuse it. At the same time, they provide you with some conditions. So if you want to have conversation, if you want to have negotiation, you should pay respect and pay at least a little bit of attention to what they want. So back to their requests, back to their preconditions for talks. What is the first thing? Well, that is quite related to American presence, the presence of foreign forces in Afghanistan. So what they're saying is quite clear. They say if we want to have conversation, then there should be a situation in which foreign actually players would be out, so that it could be Afghani talks, not other countries. So basically, we believe that this is the right approach. And even if we intervene in the process, it's
right.
not like playing a let's say main role. It's just a facilitating role that we're trying to play. That's it.
Okay, so let me bring Dr. Askari. Dr. Askari, what do you make of that? Because it's important, isn't it, that the Taliban has these very strict preconditions. It wants basically for the U.S. forces to leave Afghanistan, A, and B, it is not yet willing to talk directly to the Kabul government. Can Pakistan play a role in convincing the Taliban in that regard, Dr. Askari?
Well, for the time being, the Taliban are in favor of talking to the Americans. They had first session in UAE a couple of days ago. And Afghan Taliban were also present in a regional conference which the Russian government had held, where Kabul government representative, the Peace Council chairman was present. So it's quite possible that from this bilateral talks between Afghan Taliban and the Americans, the next stage may be a multilateral context in which different countries would be sitting and Kabul and Taliban may be sitting. Talking to the Kabul government may come subsequently if there are some, developments in the process. At this stage, there's no need to pressurize them to talk to Kabul. First, they talk to Americans and multilateral, and then perhaps at that stage. So far as the American troops are concerned, yes, that has been a condition of Taliban. And the Americans have announced their intentions to withdraw half of the troops, which means around 7,000 troops. And that will give an indication to the Taliban about the American intention, and that if that happens, that might facilitate the talks. And the final withdrawal, if it ever takes place, of American troops, may be part of the settlement, if that settlement is arrived at the conclusion of different levels of talks that are going to be held to deal with the Afghan problem.
So Dr. Askari, I wonder, what do you make of the fact that just not too long ago, Donald Trump would speak about Pakistan in very negative terms, but then now he has asked Pakistan for help regarding these peace talks, and Pakistan is now taking the leading role when it comes to these peace talks, with the foreign minister traveling to, Afghanistan, Iran, China, and Russia. What has changed, do you think, in the U.S. calculus?
Well, I think the U.S. Thinking about Pakistan has not changed. They still have a very negative view of Pakistan, as reflected in the official American statements. The only thing that has changed is that the exigency or the need of the present situation that is to hold talks with Taliban, which means some effort on the part of Americans to show some flexibility. Therefore, they have stopped talking against Pakistan. They are now seeking Pakistan's cooperation. If this effort fails, you will see the U.S. will return to its old theme of Pakistan being source of trouble in the area.
Very well, gentlemen. We'll leave it there at that as our full comment on this very important topic. Of course, the Afghan peace process moving forward, as our guest there said. But of course, there are some obstacles in the way as well. Pakistan, of course, taking the leading role at this point in time, even though it has come under criticism by the Trump administration in the past. Seemingly, Trump has changed his tone for now, at least, on Pakistan. As we know, of course, the Pakistani foreign minister traveling to those four countries, taking the leading role in trying to resolve the issue in Afghanistan. Let me thank our guest, Mr. Tawheed Asadi, who is joining us live from Tehran. He's a PhD candidate in regional studies and is also editor at the World Desk of the ISNA News Agency. We were also earlier joined by Asad Daudzai, who is a journalist, joining us live from Kabul. And we were also joined by Dr. Hassan Askari, analyst, who is joining us live from right here in Lahore. We appreciate all of their insights as provided to us in this segment. Well, viewers, we'll be back with our next segment after this short break. Stay tuned.